Another whistleblower bureaucrat in Haryana has challenged Chief Minister Bhupinder Singh Hooda's hasty appointment of new commissioners in the state. Mr Hooda administered oath to 2 information and 3 right-to-service commissioners just a couple of hours after the new governor, Kaptan Singh Solanki, was sworn in on Sunday at his residence at that. In a break from protocol, the government claims the outgoing governor had given sanction to their appointments. The opposition alleges that the sanction expired once a new governor had taken over. All these officers were either retired or nearing retirement.
मैं कप्तान सिंह सोलंकी ईश्वर की शपथ लेता हूं कि मैं
At Chandigarh, Haryana's new governor, a BJP nominee, was sworn in. Barely 2 hours later, Haryana's Chief Minister, Bhupinder Singh Hooda, administered another swearing-in ceremony, appointing 5 senior officers, all reportedly loyal to him, in a hurriedly organized event at home. But the state's top bureaucrat, Pradeep Kasni, has red-flagged these appointments, citing not just a breach of protocol, but also flouting of rules, since 3 of the commissioners hold offices of profit. His reference is to Deputy Advocate General Sunil Katyal, who has been appointed the new Rights to Service Commissioner. The other controversial appointment, that of Shiv Raman Gaur, who was Mr Hooda's former Additional Principal Secretary, now working as his advisor health.
This is internal matter of the government and let it be settled in the government.
You think that the matter should be relooked after the new governor takes over?
That is up to the Honourable Governor. I won't comment.
Mr Kasni's confrontation with the Haryana government is reminiscent of another IAS officer's war with the administration. Ashok Khemka, who was allegedly charge-sheeted for cancelling a land deal involving Robert Vadra, tweeted, "Lure for post-retirement sinecures harming institutions. New agencies are created to dangle crumbs before pliable bureaucrats and judges." But the Haryana government insists there is no illegality, even as the opposition terms the appointments unconstitutional.
कानून में ये है गवर्नर या उनका कोई ऑथराइज्ड आदमी, तो उन्होंने मेरे को ऑथराइज किया गवर्नर।
अब ये कहते हैं कि हमारे पास जो पुराने राज्यपाल थे वो मुझे अथॉरिटी दे गए थे। पहली बात तो शपथ दिलाने की जो दायित्व है वो किसी दूसरे को डेलीगेट किया नहीं जा सकता।
The manner in which swearing-in ceremony was conducted has raised several eyebrows. Only Hooda loyalists were invited while the media was kept out. Moreover, the whistleblower IAS officer was sidelined while issuing appointment letters. Now with the opposition citing irregularities and the government claiming transparency, ball lies in the newly appointed governor's court. With camera person R.P. Jaiswal in Chandigarh, Anand Patel for NDTV.
Well, we spoke to the officer in question, Mr. Kasni, who had actually blown the whistle on this appointment. I began by asking him about his protest.
In fact, I didn't write a letter. I had submitted my points on the file to the Chief Minister to be submitted to the Governor. And this was in the context of my earlier file noting, which was addressed to the Chief Minister and sent to the then Governor. Then Governor had accorded his approval and authorization for the Chief Minister to administer the oath on behalf of the Governor. There was an interpolation in that noting of mine that the Governor approves the names of the persons to be recommended by the committees, statutory committees we call them. So I sought on file a clarification from the appointing authority, that is the Governor, that he should confirm that these orders of appointment or these approvals to the proposals for appointment by the statutory committee are his, and is not an interpolation, is not a forgery, is not a fraudulent act on behalf of somebody else.
Right. So given that this has been red flagged, given that you are seeking a clarification, what's the next step now?
No, ma'am, I had specifically written that I want to sign the appointment letters, but for that I need resignations of the serving officers. This is one of the conditions, that nobody serving, nobody holding an office of profit can be appointed to these statutory posts. I am not in receipt of any single resignation even today. What to talk of Sunday? Sunday I was asked in the morning by my Chief Secretary that I should be there at Chief Minister's residence and nobody else should come to know of it, it was a kind of hush-hush affair. It was a kind of secretive thing, so that oath can be administered. I pleaded with him that unless there are letters of appointment, oath would carry no meaning. So some clarification was sought on the file, and that created the whole trouble for me, and more than me, it's the people of my state.
Right. Well, Mr. Kasni, you sought that clarification and you've stirred up this hornet's nest on bureaucratic appointments. Ashok Khemka, one of your bureaucratic colleagues in Haryana, has talked about how bureaucrats close to retirement can be pliable, and this is just an example of why, because they get these appointments. People are now calling you Haryana's next Ashok Khemka.
Ma'am, Ashok Khemka is my senior colleague. I respect his qualities of head and heart, but I am Pradeep Kasni. I am not Ashok Khemka.
Right. Well, I think the point of that question really, Mr. Kasni, was to ask you, do you agree with this idea that bureaucrats become pliable closer to retirement because they want to keep on their perks and power in office? They want to extend that for themselves.
I get it, ma'am. In fact, Haryana is being run by superannuated people only. Everybody is above 60, and they people have no compunctions about anything. They can write anything, they can do anything, and I'm really afraid if I'm in trouble, because my respected Chief Secretary, he is also on an extension, and he has been recommended for Chief Commissioner's post. And I received SMSs from him in the 2 in the night, that माँ का दूध पिया है तो ये मैसेज प्रेस के नोटिस में ले आइए, और तुम्हारे जितने साल नौकरी के बचे हुए हैं उनकी खैर मनाइए. So that kind of messages, and that too from the head of the civil administration. So that I think is not appropriate for a civil society.
So then in that sense, Mr. Kasni, what really, if bureaucrats are also in a sense working the system to their own advantage, where does one go from here? What's the way out?
Ma'am, there must be a policy, and bureaucrats must not hanker after post-retirement benefits.
But
because it demeans all of us.
Right, but given that that's what they're doing, given that they are hankering, I think, that's what I'm asking you. What really is a solution to this? Because it seems to happen time and time again. It's rampant.
Solution one is, ma'am, there should be public alertness, and second is हमारा अपना ज़मीर जागा हुआ होना चाहिए. I am not asking any chief minister for any kind of posting or any kind of post-retirement benefit. 60 years is much, is a sufficient period. Or so what else is it? I simply can't understand why people are doing that. Except it is their own diminution of self, except it is their own tendency to defile themselves.
Right, Mr. Kasni, thank you very much for joining us on the show tonight. You have actually exposed that appointment, the 5 appointments that the Hooda government did make. Many are saying that was made in haste, but as you pointed out, Haryana is run by retired officers in a sense. Joining me to discuss this further, of course, Ashok Khemka, the Secretary to the Government of Haryana, who himself has been a victim of the politics of the Haryana government in a sense. 22 transfers already, and you tweeted earlier today talking about how retired bureaucrats or those appearing nearing retirement are pliable. We're also being joined by Shailesh Gandhi, the former CIC, Amitabh Pandey in the studio, former bureaucrat as well. From the BJP, GVL Narasimha Rao, and we have Sanjay Jha of the Congress staying on with us. I want to ask you, Mr. Khemka, first. Everyone is calling Mr. Kasni the next Ashok Khemka of Haryana. He has, in a sense, exposed this, but he's also made the point that Haryana is really run by retired bureaucrats.
Maya, the views expressed in this channel are personal and do not represent official views. That may be Mr. Kasni's view. I respect his views. It is not necessarily correct that Haryana is run by retired bureaucrats, but the patronages are, these post-retirement sinecures are like patronages by the political executive. And that does harm to the system in 2 ways actually. So my tweet, let me clarify, that was not in this particular specific context, but that was in a more generalized setting. I had expressed my views on post-retirement sinecures earlier also, and my views are well known. It harms the system in two ways. Number one, the existing institutions. People become somewhat pliable. The last 1 year or 2 years are designedly people work in a calculated manner to please the political executive, to be able to procure or to obtain a post-retirement sinecure for the next 5 years or more.
Right.
And the second thing, these people cannot be expected to build newer agencies or newer institutions. So the very rationale or logic of creating newer agencies to be able to deliver justice or service to citizens is lost by very much appointing these pliable people or people who are actually craving for these jobs. When you ask them to bend, they'll start crawling to be able to get to the next 5 years. So this has to be, this is a very moral question.
Okay.
You cannot have laws or you cannot have rules, constraining people that, look, this cannot be done in this way. Laws and rules will give more loopholes out of the system.
All right,
and will give rise to suboptimal solutions.
Okay, Mr. Khemka.
So this has to be by, just a minute, by way of more discussions and moral suasion, that this has to be stopped.
Okay, all right, Mr. Khemka, I'm going to expand this debate. The BJP has actually raised its voice against what has happened. I'd like Ms. Narasimha Rao to give us your perspective and what you're hoping now that there has been this exposure, there has been this opposition. What are you looking for?
No, I think the very appointment of these 5 commissioners is completely, I think, violative of the principles, the violative of the Act itself, and the Chief Minister has conducted this swearing in hours after the new governor has taken over.
Right.
There are accusations of fraud, accusations of overwriting. So I think it's a very serious case. So I think certainly, I would certainly expect the government to the stop at this and not give effect to the kind of swearing in that was done, because this was done in a very illegal, unconstitutional manner. And should the government go ahead with it, I think the governor will have to take recourse to requisite remedies available.
Fair point.
To it.
So the BJP calling this unconstitutional. Before I bring the other bureaucrats in as well over here, Sanjay Jha, I want to ask you, it's not new that retiring officers, retiring bureaucrats are given an extension, are repositioned in something else, are given post-retirement jobs, etc. But the question really is the haste with which this was done. At the Chief Minister's residence, that's a break from protocol. 2 hours after a new governor has been sworn in, that's a break from protocol. Why the rush?
Maya, in fact, there's a retired bureaucrat who's now running the PMO. I mean, you have had India's Prime Minister in such remarkable haste, bringing about an amendment to put Mr. Mishra in the job of the Principal Secretary. So you have a very extraordinary precedence if you look at that. But I think we need to recognize a few realities, since a lot of people have made statements. I think they should not be blindsided by being so prejudiced on one and ignoring what was clearly a breach of basic democratic and parliamentary protocol by the highest office in the land. Anyway, having said that, the very critical point, Maya, that the former governor, Mr. Jagannath Paharia, had approved these appointments. Somebody mentioned on your panel earlier that the gentleman concerned may be holding an office of profit. Let me just clarify that the people concerned who have been appointed have either resigned or have taken a voluntary retirement before they were sworn in. And the cabinet secretary of the Haryana government, please credit the gentleman with some experience and expertise, has said there is absolutely no illegality. So if there's anybody on the panel who believes that there has been any infringement or contravention of the law, they are free to take its own natural course.
All right, Sanjay Jha, we're going to get Amitabh Pandey and Shailesh Gandhi in on this as well. Shailesh Gandhi, I saw you shaking your head quite vigorously when you were hearing Sanjay Jha's comments. Go ahead.
I am pained at the fact that neither the Congress gentlemen nor the BJP gentlemen have understood the real problem, which is affecting our whole democracy and the whole nation. Governors, commissioners, Lok Ayuks are all positions of checks and balances of democracy. What my BJP friend forgets is, how was the governor appointed? By an act of arbitrariness. Earlier, Congress appointed somebody by an act of arbitrariness. Now BJP does the same. Information Commissioner, the same goes. Minorities Commission, Women's Commission, National Human Rights Commission, all of these have become patronage jobs, as Khemka has rightly said. Is this the way to continue? Is any of them saying what happens to the nation? I would like the political parties to recognize that they are damaging the institutions of democracy. They are damaging the nation by their completely arbitrary patronage.
Okay,
this should happen by a process of transparent selection.
All right, let's get Mr. Pandey in on this as well. Mr. Pandey, I think what Shailesh Gandhi and in a sense Ashok Khemka are making the point is that this is not about which political party is doing this to favor which bureaucrat. It's the idea that bureaucrats don't want to step aside and they will then try and lobby. Mr. Gandhi is making the point of all these various commissions that we have, which are run by ex-judges, ex-bureaucrats, not giving a sense that there is actually room for people below them to also come up and grow.
I completely agree. I think it's a shocking scandal, and the scale of the problem has increased massively. In the last 10 years, the number of post-retirement jobs which have been created through the creation of commissions, tribunals, regulatory bodies, committees, grievances, any number of, I think the scale is, I'm hazarding a guess, but something close to 2,000 jobs at that level have been added in the last 10 years alone. Now, this has happened only in the last 10 years. Earlier, the post-retirement jobs were limited. So, yes, there was some patronage involved, but you knew that the number of these jobs is extremely limited. So, now suddenly everyone can aspire to a post-retirement job, and only people who don't aspire for that are considered as somewhat, people like me are considered as somewhat who haven't really made it, you know.
Okay. All right. Well, then I'm sure you have a different point of view on that. So, yeah, there's no judgment about who is going to go and who is not going to go. But that's an interesting point that you have made, that about, you know, earlier there were fewer options available. There was a limited number of post-retirement jobs. Ashok Khemka, I think that's an interesting point that Amitabh Pandey is also raising, that, you know, not just that these bureaucrats aspire to be appointed to these commissions, but in some cases posts are also created and invented to for these bureaucrats.
You are very right, Maya. You see what happens by this lucre of post-retirement sinecure. Suppose if there are 5 posts created and there are 7 to 8 people of very senior rank who are heading institutions, they aspire for these posts. Now what they do, they set a very bad morale and example for the others who do not join them. So the whole institution, you know, there is a great harm to these institutions in the sense that it demoralizes the upright people who are not hankering after these lures and working in a straight and honest manner. They are sidelined in a way, sort of way. So a proper solution should be, or ought to be, that there should be a complete stop to any post-retirement sinecures after you have reached a certain level, say of the rank of chief secretary in the bureaucracy or the director general of police in the police. Absolutely there should be a no. So if you take up that promotion, you must understand that there is no post-retirement sinecure for you. It might be that these officers may get 2 years extra in the service, so that they do not compromise their positions while they are in their existing services and do not cause harm to these institutions.
Okay. So you're saying, yeah, go ahead, Mr. Pandey.
No, to add to that, I have 3 suggestions to make. One, increase the retirement age uniformly across the board. Give a fixed tenure to a person at the last stage of his job, a secretary to Government of India, whatever. Give him a fixed tenure of 3 years, irrespective of when he becomes a secretary, so that he knows that for the next 3 years, he is safe on that job and he doesn't start negotiating his post-retirement job if he's going to retire after 7 months or so. 3, make retirement attractive.
Okay. And how would they do that?
By increasing the pensions, making the pensions the same as the last pay drawn. That's a principle followed in many places, so that you don't necessarily then create a discrimination between those who have accepted their retirement and those who then
have
seek
post-retirement jobs. Okay, that's a fair point. So Sanjay Jha and Mr. Rao, the fact is, all the bureaucrats and ex-bureaucrats here are saying one fundamental thing. It's not about which party has done it for which bureaucrat and favored which bureaucrat. It's the idea that this should not actually be happening at all. Mr. Rao, I'll let you go first and then let Sanjay Jha respond.
I think that's a point that can be considered, but I'm only hazarding a guess as to why a lot of bureaucrats post-retirement are given up this kind of assignments. One, they certainly have some kind of experience which is hard to find in many cases outside. But certainly, I think I also agree this breeds some kind of favoritism and some kind of political alignment to be able to grab these jobs post-retirement. So this is certainly a very important issue that needs to be debated. But what we are looking at Haryana, the case that we are currently discussing, appears to be a case of fraud, a fraudulent appointment. I think the problem here is not of why certain people have been appointed. Certainly, the people appointed, looking at the profile of these people, do not appear to be the right kind of people for the job. But then that's a different subject altogether. But the manner, the hurried manner, and the manner in which the governor's noting itself seems to have been written over, seems to have been some tampered with. And the fact that these people had not resigned before they were even sworn in, I think these are different questions.
Okay.
This is nothing to do with the subject that we are debating today.
All right, Sanjay Jha, come in on this.
Oh, let me tell you, Mr. Rao, my BJP friend, sounds extremely self-righteous. Forget retirement. I mean, this party is known to have the former Mumbai police commissioner, the ex-army chief, the home secretary. All of them fight the election itself. So, we know how the infiltration of the bureaucracy by some political parties can take place even when people are in government.
But I think that's sort of sidetracking from the issue.
There is a serious point that we need to discuss though, Maya.
Yeah.
Which is, no, wait, I'm not, I'm answering your question. That, there are bureaucrats who have a lot of expertise and develop a mastery in certain fields of government. And, I think public services in India can possibly tap into it. But the important thing is there should not be a political quid pro quo. So if there's a very great professional talent, I think the government has a right to, definitely use that resource.
But Sanjay
even
Jha,
post-retirement. But it must come with riders of a cooling off period, etc., etc. I think one needs to build a more I would say a systemic structure where the political complexion on a former bureaucrat is absolutely zero. Not even minimal, it has to be zero.
Okay, I'm going to get Shailesh Gandhi in on this because you've made a point that actually doesn't seem to bear out in these appointments, which is that they are being appointed for their technical expertise in a particular area. Shailesh Gandhi, we know that hasn't been the case in many appointments.
In most appointments, and this is what pains me, both these political people are talking of fairy tales. But let me also tell you, it's not just retired bureaucrats. A journalist can be as bad, an academician in a wrong position can be as bad. So it's not so much about bureaucrats versus non-bureaucrats. It is with the fact that the political parties continue to want to treat this as political patronage, and I defy both these political people to say that that is not the case. When it's Congress, the Congress says I'll do it, whether it's Mayawati, whether it's Mulayam Singh or Trinamool Congress or the Congress, all of them are treating this like a feudal job to be given away, like zamindaris were being given away. This is what we need to stop because we are damaging the fabric of the nation, damaging the checks and balances of democracy.
Right, and I think Sanjay,
I wish they could see sense and think of the nation.
Okay, I'm going to give Sanjay actually 30 seconds because we are running out of time to get all the panelists in. The point is not really about which party is doing what, as you pointed out. It is about the idea that this exists. I mean, this should not happen. You have an IAS service, a foreign service, a police service. then you have people rising up these ranks. So why are you allowing this kind of an argument even to take place, that they are technically capable, so let them stay on? There are others technically capable coming up right behind them.
Well, let me tell you, I mean, I can't speak on that on behalf of our former government when we were there. But the truth of the matter is that I think in government, in public institutions, and I think it's very important to have the right people at the helm of affairs. And I think very often there are, I think, some outstanding bureaucrats that one has seen over several years in the IAS and the IPS and the IFS. I think governments have, political parties have a right to, you know, their own jurisdiction or their own decision as to who ought to possibly head a particular body or not. Please remember one thing, Maya, the shortage of quality talent is part of the entire Indian hemisphere. It's in corporate, it's in bureaucracy, and we all know it's there in politics as well. But the important thing is that the political interference has to be minimal. You can't have a bureaucrat who's compliant, who's playing to the whims of the political masters, and therefore can be extremely destructive to the very institutions that he represents. I think that could be the risk that we can't really afford.
But that also sounds like a bit like a convenient argument in a sense, because again, we're talking about a system that's not really being followed in its letter and spirit. Ashok Khemka, I know you wanted to come in. You were raising your hand earlier. Go ahead.
You see, the argument that we want to harness the experience of a bureaucrat, so post-retirement we must have a right to call them. That's fair enough, but that holds more for subject experts like doctors or scientists or specialized engineers, not for a bureaucrat. I have seen in my service career that if a bureaucrat in his 30s or 40s are given opportunity, they will deliver results in the job much more than what a bureaucrat in his late 50s or 60s could.
Right.
So this idea of experience is actually overemphasized, at least as far as bureaucracy is concerned.
All right. Okay, Ashok Khemka, thank you very much. We're actually completely out of time. Mr. Pandey, I'll just give you 5 seconds for the last word on this one.
Increase the retirement age.
Yeah.
For everyone. Number 2, most of these jobs are not required. 70% of these jobs are absolutely
So they're a drain on the exchequer in general, essentially.
Those jobs are not required.
Those jobs are not required.
They've been created for post-retirement.
Okay, we'll have to leave it on that note, but lots to debate, lots to think about further on this crucial topic. That's all we have time for on the Buck Stops here tonight. News First at 10, up after a quick break. Stay tuned. Bye-bye.